Kayla Delzer, and the title of her presentation, Beyond Digital Citizenship, Elevating Student Voice in 140 Characters or Less, right? That's a challenge. 6-word bio, student-loving, progressive, innovative. Please welcome Kayla.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is Kayla Delzer. I'm a 3rd grade teacher in North Dakota. And my job today is really just to share the story of my students. I get to be here and kind of communicate what my students do every single day. So really I'm just here on their behalf. And I'm super excited to sort of show you what my kids do from our classroom every single day. So there's a statistic that 65% of today's school children will be employed in jobs that have not yet been created. Kelly was mentioning this earlier. And so basically my job as a 3rd grade teacher now is completely different than what a 3rd grade teacher was doing 20 years ago. So we're not now preparing students to be veterinarians or teachers or doctors, because we now are trying to prepare kids for jobs that don't exist yet with technology that has not yet been created. That is my job now, okay? There's another statistic that 93% of employers are going to use social media to either hire or recruit their employees. So that means that as a classroom teacher, if I'm not preparing my students for the world that they're going out into, and they have a negative digital footprint or tattoo, or they have a neutral digital footprint, they have a 7% chance of landing that job. Okay, so I think as educators, we must do better. As teachers or educators or parents or communities or administrators, we need to be champions of digital citizenship. So this means my students, they have access to my social media. They follow my social media, which is, by the way, Top Dog Teaching. My classroom-led accounts are Top Dog Kids. So my kids follow my social media, and I'm comfortable with that. In fact, they've been following along all day today. We have a rule in our classroom: my students will never post something that they wouldn't be proud of saying in front of their grandmother. Okay? I will never post something that I wouldn't be proud of saying in front of my students. Okay? So I think that's a good barometer for both of us probably. Regardless, leveraging social media in education is no longer negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Okay? I think it was I was trying to go back to when my classroom first started tweeting, and I think it was in 2012. So I'm pretty sure I've had 4 different sets of 2nd and 3rd graders now tweeting from our classroom accounts. And when I first started out, I was kind of new to Twitter, and I was like, okay, I see the value in Twitter, but I'm not really ready to have my kids on Twitter yet because they're 7, right? So I was scared. I was terrified, and then Instagram came, and then came our student-led Snapchat account, which was terrifying. But at some point I realized the analog Twitter wall that I had in our classroom, kids were writing out tweets, we were putting them up on a bulletin board, that was fine. My kids were reflecting, they were writing, they were sharing, but the sharing wasn't leaving the 4 walls of our classroom. And I realized I had to do better. I had to do better. So I had to take a step back. I had to realize that my comfort level was less important than giving my students an authentic social media experience, okay? I always say, if something is scary, it might be something that's good to do. I don't know, going to Twitter and speaking in front of people on a live stream. It's probably something that you should do. It's probably something good. So do the scary stuff. Don't feed the fears, right? If teachers are scared of everything, and if it's scary, we just don't do it, we're never going to progress. Okay, progression happens when things are scary and you push forward anyways. Okay, that includes having student-led social media accounts. Okay, so this is a picture that was actually taken this fall in my classroom. You might be thinking we're really big into hunting in North Dakota. True, we are. But we actually were dressed up for a social media boot camp. Okay, so 5 years ago I was looking online trying to find some kind of good curriculum that would be good for my students before I threw them on Twitter, before I put them on a device that was already connected. And that was mentioned earlier today. If we wait until kids have the devices in their hand that's already connected, that's too late, right? We need to educate them as soon as they have that device, before they even have that device. So I actually developed a curriculum, a digital citizenship curriculum for primary students. Okay, it included things like not sharing private information. Kids don't know that their birthday, including a year, is private. Kids don't know that their phone number is private. Kids practice their phone number. They practice it. They practice their address. When they finally know their address, they will tell everybody their address, right? They'll tell the person checking them out at McDonald's if they ask, because they're so proud of it, right? So what's private information? What happens when you see cyberbullying? What is cyberbullying? Okay, all of these sort of things. So my kids actually had to pass through 7 different levels of digital citizenship boot camp before they were certified, okay? And so I'm happy to say all 15 of my kids passed through the boot camp this year, so now they have the reins to our social media accounts. So my kids tweet every single day from our student-led accounts. It's moderated by me, but really, it's led by them, okay? And so when my students really started taking over these accounts, I really started to see 3 powerful outcomes. So the first was really that my kids were able to establish authentic digital citizenship opportunities. Okay, while having that analog Twitter wall in my classroom was a good start, and maybe that's where I was at the time, it was doing a disservice to my kids because it wasn't real. It was not real. Okay, when I finally got that Twitter account and I handed it over to them, suddenly they saw that the world was a lot bigger than Thief River Falls, Minnesota, or it was a lot bigger than Fargo, North Dakota. Now I teach in Mapleton, where I have 15 third graders, and the world is bigger than Mapleton. It's a lot bigger than Mapleton. So my kids were really able to start building their digital footprint, looking at our classroom brand, all sorts of things like that. It was real, okay? It wasn't something that we were just making up and putting in our classroom, okay? My kids were able to publish for the world. I think that this is maybe one of the most powerful parts of our student-led accounts is that my kids know there's a whole world out there. In fact, they ask me all the time if I can post this on Top Dog Teaching because they know my blog has an audience. And the thing is, all students have a voice. And it's our job as educators to help elevate that voice. Sometimes they just need a platform. Just need a platform to share it on. So we need to give them that platform. And it needs to be bigger than the 15 students in my classroom. I think about how many assignments we have from students that actually just get turned in to the teacher. How many assignments do we have kids complete that literally just go in the turn-in basket and that's it? Right? We can do better. Students will do their worst writing when it's only going to the teacher. I guarantee when my kids post a tweet or it goes on their Instagram page that has like 3,000 followers, they're gonna take the time to put the capital letter at the beginning and they're gonna remember a punctuation at the mark at the end. They're gonna pick their 3 best emojis and their caption's gonna match the picture. They will do amazing work because there's almost a positive pressure when they see there's a bigger audience out there, right? Not to mention the numerous global connections that we've made when my students started putting their work out there. Okay, they're getting feedback that's honestly invaluable from students around the world that are commenting on their work. My students are finally realizing that their work matters. Their work has value. They're proud to share what they're doing, and there's a whole world out there that's embraced that. Okay, third, my students are really able to, wait for it.
You're fixed.
Keeping us
Perfect, they were just suspenseful. They were able to create a transparent classroom. So every day my students shout from the rooftops what we are doing in our classroom. And I really think I live by this. I want to be really transparent. So what you see online is what you're going to see when you meet me in real life, okay? What my kids choose to share every single day is what they think is most important. So every day I have a tweeter of the day, Snapchatter of the day, Instagrammer of the day. And their job is to pick what they think is the most important learning from that day and share it out on our social media networks. It really allows the whole world to see what happens every single day in our classroom. It makes it crystal clear, transparent. If I'm going to talk the talk, I must walk the walk, along with my students. Okay, so what does it take? You need student participation, so you need your students to buy in that this work matters. You need administrative support, because at the end of the day, I can go to my principal with all these crazy ideas, and they could say, Kayla, no, and then that's really where the buck stops, right? Like, I would need to come with a lot of stuff to back this up. And third, you need parent support. So when I mentioned that boot camp earlier, I actually had a parent boot camp that night. Parents came into my classroom. Parents learned what is a retweet, what is a tweet, how do I follow your class? What is my son's tweeter of the day? How can I interact with them? What does it mean if I like a picture on Instagram? We set them up, we showed them what it is. We talked about how we're going to protect their child and why that's important, because we do have an obligation to make sure that we're protecting students' privacy. But I think that at the end of the day, we need to keep in mind that we have that obligation, but we can't be scared of everything. We still have to do it, okay? This is a picture of a cell phone hotel. This exists today. So in some schools, technology is banned. Students have to turn their cell phones in to the cell phone hotel, and at the end of the day, they get to check it back out. We have more technology now than when we put man on the moon, but we're telling kids, don't bring it to school. We can't, there's no place for that here, right? We might think we're protecting kids when we take the devices away for a day, but when we actually teach them how to use it the right way, we're empowering students for a lifetime. We're setting them up for success for a lifetime. Okay? We can't just take it all away. Thank you. And I think at the end of the day, students really need to guide what we're doing in our schools and not teachers. Our schools need to be student-centered and less teacher-centered. And honestly, I think, like, I truly believe this. If it's right for kids, it's right. At the end of the day. Thank you.
Barriers from administration when they think, oh my gosh, third graders are they, or fourth graders?
First it was second graders and now third.
Okay, so second and third graders. I mean, anything from barriers from administration about second and third graders on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat?
Right, so I think the first thing that I did was I invited administration into my classroom. And I said, look at what we're able to do. Look, a classroom in Hong Kong just tweeted to us. Now we are communicating with a classroom in Hong Kong. So you bring the administration in, you show them what you're doing, you help them get comfortable with it, and then you get them set up on social media. You show them that they should have a PLN, and here's who you can learn from. And I think, like, parents too, the parent support piece is huge, but they do support you when you bring them into the classroom and you comfort them and you say, look, I know you want to have this conversation about digital citizenship, but how many parents do you think sit down at dinner and say, what do you do to impact your digital footprint today? Like 10% maybe, right? They want to have that conversation with their kids, but they're not sure where to get started. So when they know that teachers are on board, teachers are going to help them with that conversation, it's a good starting point and it makes a big difference.
Talk about teachers making a difference. I mean, you're